Hello guys and welcome to episode 2 of my KSP tutorials. In the last episode we built a very simple rocket and launched it, and we got a bit of science, so enough to unlock these first two pieces of the tech tree. And in this episode we're going to try to get to orbit. So before we do that, we're going to go into the mission control building and accept some of these contracts. Now contracts are how you get more funds. So you can see this one is to escape the atmosphere, and if we do that we will get 49,000 funds, 8 science and 19 reputation. So we're going to accept that, and we're also going to accept the orbit Kerbin one. So now we're going to go back into the VAB, and as you can see in a minute, there are more things in here because we unlocked more stuff in the tech tree. So we're going to start off with the Mark 1 command pod, as always, and we want to make the very last part of the ship. So this is the part of the ship which is going to come back to the ground and land. I'm going to stick one of these on so we can get more science. This is one of the parts that we unlocked last time, and we're going to stick 2 of those on as well. And we're going to need a parachute, obviously. And then we're going to have a stack decoupler. So this decoupler is going to decouple everything underneath it away from this top bit, so that it'll only be this bit that actually lands back down on Kerbin. And now we're going to add a fuel tank, and probably a few more of these. You can copy parts by holding Alt and then clicking on them like that. And now we're going to put the engine on the bottom. There we go. And another stack decoupler. So we'll have this stage, which is going to be the part that will get us into orbit. And then below that we're going to have some solid fuel boosters. Probably quite a lot of them. So let's do that, and then we can copy this and put it underneath, and then we can add another solid fuel booster under there. So we've got a massive tower of solid fuel boosters. Excellent. Let's add some more on there though. Let's add another 3 to these bottom 2. And another 2 to this top one. Now, instead of clicking on the symmetry mode, I'm using X and Shift X to cycle through the symmetry stages. It doesn't really matter, but it's just a little bit quicker. So now we need to sort out all of our staging. So we want the first stage to be all of these 4 solid rocket boosters need to start. Now, as you hover over them, you can see on the staging down here in the bottom right, things getting highlighted. So you can tell that this one is that middle one in the bottom, and these 3 are the ones around it. So that's where we want the first stage to be. Then we need to decouple them once they've burnt out. So we're going to put this decoupler in the next stage. And then we want this next set of 3, which is this one. Set of 4 even, and these 3, and then we start a new stage with that decoupler in, and then we want this set of 3 here to work, and then we want the decoupler, and then we want this engine, and then we want to decouple that, and then we want the parachute to deploy. Okay, so that looks good. It is going to need some fins, so let's do that. Now if you click on this button down here, it will show you the center of mass of your rocket, and if you click on this button it will show you the center of lift. So you can see the center of lift is all the way down here because these fins are on there and they're the only thing generating lift. But you see, as soon as these decouple, we don't have anything generating lift, so we're going to stick another set of fins here for when they decouple. Oops, that isn't right at all. Okay, there we go. And this section is probably still going to be inside the atmosphere, so we're going to need another set of fins there, 1 on each side. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's give it a go. Space! Exclamation mark. Damn! Okay, so with this vehicle assembly building that we have, which is a fairly low tier one, you can upgrade them with funds. We have too many parts. Let's see if that's enough. Now it's too heavy. Oh dear. Okay, so we're going to need to start off with something a lot simpler. Is this going to be enough? Yes, it is. Excellent. If we wanted to launch that heavier ship, then we would have had to upgrade the launch pad by spending some money, which we will probably get enough from by completing some of these contracts. Actually, before I launch this, I'm going to do one of these just on the ground, because that gets us a free 7 science, and then I'm going to recover this vessel. Excellent. And now let's go back into here and launch it again. So last time we launched a rocket, it was just going to go straight up, so we didn't really need to use any of the controls. But this time we want to go in a bit of an arc, so that when we get back inside the atmosphere, we won't be going as fast. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the WASD keys, which change the direction your rocket's pointing, to tilt it over just after you've launched. So we're going to hit T. We don't need to do anything with the throttle because the solid fuel boosters aren't affected by that. And then we're going to hit space. Now, as soon as we're going fairly fast, we're going to press the D key to lean over to the right. Oh dear. Okay. Now the problem here is our fins aren't big enough. So let's go back to the vehicle assembly building and add some more fins. So add another 2. Like that. Excellent. Now, normally, if your rocket does that and spins around, adding a couple more fins at the base of the rocket or just turning slightly more gradually will fix the problem. It's actually fixed too well. I'm actually holding down D now, but I can barely turn. But that doesn't really matter. Let's get a... Actually, let's not do that. We'll wait until we're a bit higher up. Okay, so now we're going to turn over quite drastically and throttle up our engine. Oh dear. Yeah, we don't have any fins on this stage. Okay, so we've got some more fins now, so it should be a bit more stable. And the throttle doesn't matter, so we're just going to hit T, and I'm going to press space and then hold down the D key, which will cause the spaceship to turn a bit to the right so that our trajectory isn't as steep, and it won't we won't be coming as fast into the atmosphere when we come back down from being in space, which means our parachute will work a lot better, and it's unlikely that we will burn up because of the re-entry. Okay, so these are nearly done. They're out. Now we're going to start the next one and throttle up to full. I'm actually now doing the A key because this is a very unstable rocket at the moment. Right, we want to keep a bit of fuel. Let's have a look here. In the map, you'll see an apoapsis. And now if that is above 70 kilometers, that means that you're in space. And you can see ours is at 90 kilometers at the moment. So if we just hit the full stop key to speed things up a little bit, then as soon as this little arrow is right at the end of the atmosphere meter, we'll know that we are in space and we can do some science. In fact, I'm going to do some science right now for the upper atmosphere, as you can see, just before we got into space, which is where we are now. So we can do another one, and it will say in space near Kerbin, 10 science, excellent. And if we do the materials bay, 25 science for in space near Kerbin. And we can also do a crew report, 5 science for in space near Kerbin. Okay, now, we've hardly got any fuel left, so we aren't going to make it into an orbit on this mission. But it's still been very successful. If you look up here, you'll see all your contracts. And we've done all of them except for Orbit Kerbin. and set a speed record of 2,500 meters per second. So that's pretty successful. Let's just speed up time a little bit. Now that we're in space, we can go, you see that this changes, so you can speed up time a hell of a lot more than just the 4 times that you can do when you're inside the atmosphere. See, we're now going at 10 and we're not even close to the end. It looks like we're going to be landing in the sea, which is okay, but it does mean that we're going to be there is a slightly higher chance that things might get destroyed because the sea is rather unforgiving in KSP. Okay, we're going to keep this extra little bit of fuel to slow down before we deploy our parachute so that it's less likely to get destroyed. We're actually going to point backwards like that. Excellent. Things are getting very hot. You can see the bars filling up with the amount of heat that they have, and as long as they don't get full all the way, then things should be fine. Right, so I'm going to switch on my engine now to help us slow down and just burn up this extra bit of fuel. Okay, that's gone, so we're going to decouple it. Ideally, we would have kept that engine because it is very expensive. And let's just deploy the parachute. But we don't have enough parachutes to be able to carry that as well. So we're just going to have to deal with losing that little bit of money. Now we can speed up time a little bit as we come down to the ground. When the parachute actually deploys fully, you probably don't want to be in full physics warp, as this is called, because it can sometimes break a ship. It's probably not going to be a problem with a ship as small as this one, but if it's a big ship with lots of parachutes, then that's something you definitely want to look out for. And if we're landing on ground, then this wouldn't be very accurate because it's going to sea level. But as we're landing on the sea, it should be perfect, so that when it gets to 0, we should hit the sea. Yep, there we go. Everything looks fine. Nothing broke. So we can recover the vessel and see what we got. 57 science. That is excellent. And an extra 2,000 funds for the parts. And a lot of funds for completing that contract, actually. So we seem to have a fair bit of money. Let's have a look at the mission control center. Yeah, look at this. Now that we've gone to space, we've got loads more contracts over here. But there you go. We're not going to get into any of that just yet. Let's see how much it costs to upgrade the launch pad. 75,000. That I think we can afford. Let's do that. There we go. What about the VAB? That's a lot more. Don't know if we want to do that just yet. But can we upgrade this? That's only 75. And it means that we'll be able to get out of the spaceship with our Kerbal, which means more science. So let's do that. Excellent. Now, getting to orbit. We were actually pretty close with that other ship there. So let's just add a little bit more to this ship. Maybe one more stage like that. That might do it. Let's have a look. Let's put all these solid fuel boosters into the right stage. Down there like that. And move this decoupler. There we go. Okay, this could work for us. So let's give it a go. Now, when you're getting into orbit, that is a lot harder than just getting to space. Just getting to space, you can just go straight up, get to space, but then you're just going to come straight down again. When you get into orbit, you need to have a very high speed going sideways. So basically, you can go all the way around the Earth without hitting its atmosphere. So that means that when we launch, we want to go at an angle. So as soon as you launch, we don't need to worry about the throttle. We can press the T for SAS, and as soon as you launch, you're going to turn over to the right, which means pressing the D key. Now, you turn to the right because that's the direction that Kerbin spins, so you get an extra 174 meters per second. If you click on this down here and turn it to orbital speed, you can see because of Kerbin spinning, we actually are already moving. So we don't need as big a ship if we turn to the right as opposed to turning to the left. So we're going to launch and hold down D. You don't want to go too far. Just in this first stage of the flight, you only really want to lean over by about this much. And you want to be aiming for, when you get to 10 kilometers, to be at about a 45-degree angle. But that is a lot harder with a rocket like this, where you're using solid fuel boosters in the lower stages and you don't have any fins that you can control. So don't worry too much about being super accurate with that. You can see the fins are starting to overheat a little bit, but they're nowhere near exploding or melting or whatever at the moment. Actually, they are getting very close. Oh man, I spoke too soon. Right, let's decouple them. And yeah, you can see we didn't lean over nearly enough here, but that's no problem. Let's go on to the next stage and throttle up this engine. I'm going to lean over quite drastically here, and I'm going to do some science just at the moment in the upper atmosphere because I didn't get any of that in the last mission. Now look on the map and you can see that our apoapsis is well into space. For a very efficient orbit, you want to have your apoapsis as low as possible because that means you're not wasting any fuel getting high up into space. So you want it to be just outside the atmosphere at maybe 75 kilometers instead of 176 kilometers, which we've got here. So that isn't very efficient, but let's just ignore that. Now, let's see if we're going to have enough fuel. If we don't, that's fine, because we can just do this again, and hopefully next time it'll be a bit more efficient because we won't make such a high apoapsis. But what I've done here is, I need to explain some things here actually. I've speeded up so that I get to the highest part of my trajectory, and then I've pointed towards this little symbol on the nav ball, which is the prograde vector, is its technical term. It basically shows you the direction that your ship is pointing in. So if I point my ship to not the direction it's pointing, the direction that it's actually moving. So if I point my ship towards that and switch on my engine, my ship speeds up and my trajectory expands. And once that is going all the way around Kerbin without hitting the atmosphere on the other side, we'll be in an orbit. It doesn't look like we're going to make it this time though. No, we were very close, but not quite there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the launch. This ship is capable of getting to orbit because we were just very inefficient with... I didn't keep track of how high my apoapsis was. Right, so T and holding down the D key and pressing space. Okay. If you look in the bottom left here, you can see what controls I'm hitting. So if I press S, then the pitch moves. If I press W, that moves. If I press A and D, then the yaw will move. And for the roll, that's actually Q and E, but I don't want to do that. Okay, this is looking good. If we check the map, our apoapsis is well inside the atmosphere, only 17. Hope those fins don't explode. Yeah, they are right on the brink there, aren't they? Right, our apoapsis is now already outside the atmosphere, so we don't need to do anything else. We don't even need to use this stage at this point. Let's just start it, but we've got our throttle on zero, so it's not going to do anything. Now we're just going to get up to our highest part of our trajectory, or our apoapsis, or AP, as it says there. And then once we're there, we're going to point towards our prograde, this little marker down here, and we're going to switch our engine on full power. Now that we're in space, we can use the faster warp. So if you just go back down to 1 times speed and then go back up, and then it will give you the option you can go back up again. Okay, so we are just about there. So let's go back down to 1 and point towards our prograde vector, which should be about on the horizon at this stage. And throttle up. Excellent. Now, as you can see, at this stage before, we only had a tiny amount of fuel left, only about 2 of these tanks, but now we've got a lot more. So let's see, are we going to make it? Don't know, it's going to be close. What's that? 48. Oh, we've got so little fuel left. You know what? I don't think we can do it. I think we might be able to get this outside of the atmosphere, but we definitely wouldn't be able to come down. So I'm going to make some very small changes to the ship. So we've added 2 fuel tanks to this. Now that means that we're going to be a little bit slower in the lower atmosphere, but that should be okay. So pressing T, holding down the D key, so that we're going to be turning over to the right, and pressing space. Yeah, you can see we're definitely going noticeably slower now because our ship is a lot heavier. And that's a decent trajectory for how low down we are, so I'm not pressing down on D anymore. Okay, these are nearly done, and away they go to the next set. I'm pressing down on D again now because we're getting quite high up and we haven't really changed our trajectory. And these are starting to overheat, but not as much as they did last time because we're going a little bit slower. I'm going to check the map. We're on 78. Okay, that's fine. Let's do some science in the upper atmosphere, as we haven't done that before with the Science Junior. Let's also get one with that, why not? Right. That is a really bad trajectory for this. We should have leant over a lot further, so that it would be, and then it would be a much wider trajectory here, so we wouldn't need as much fuel to get to orbit. But we do have a fair bit of fuel left here, so it's still possible. We do have a very low apoapsis, so that's fairly efficient. Right, now we're going to point towards the prograde and switch on our engine. There we go, we're expanding out our orbit. Our trajectory is not in orbit yet. Right, that runs out quick, doesn't it? About half of our fuel left. I'm going to actually stop here and speed it up to get back to where the apoapsis is, so that will be a little bit more efficient. And switch on the engine again. We need to get our periapsis, which is also the lowest part of your orbit, to above 70. And there we go. Our periapsis is now above 70 kilometers, which means we are in orbit. And we could spin around as much as we want. We would never hit the ground unless we slow ourselves down. And because we upgraded our astronaut complex, we can now get out of here and do an EVA report above Kerbin's grasslands, apparently. So we can get 8 science for that and get back in. Let's do some subdue as well. I think we've already done that experiment, but oh well. And actually, that said, I think that these EVA reports that you do when you're in space are biome dependent. So if we do one now, yeah, we're now above the sea, so that's another 8 science. That's pretty useful. I'm actually going to do a orbit here and see if I can't get a bit more science from those EVA reports. Let's do another one. Highlands, there we go, that's another 8. And let's have a look at our contract window. Achieve orbit around Kerbin. Excellent. We've done that. Let's see if there's anything different now. No, we're still on Highlands, but there's actually a little trick if you do a crew report, that's not going to get any science, so it doesn't really matter. But if I did a crew report and I kept the data, then we now have a crew report and some stored data. If I go EVA and take the data out of here and then store them again, and board, we now have just stored data and no crew report, so I can do another one. It basically resets the crew report, so you can do as many of them as you want if you've got a Kerbal that can reset it. Now I want to be landing in the daytime and preferably on the ground as well. So I'm going to come around here, and once I get to here, which I can see where the land starts, I'm going to point to the opposite direction that I'm moving, which is shown on the navboard by that little marker called the retrograde marker, and point towards that and switch on my engine again. So now this trajectory is coming down. Let's leave it there. We can decouple that. And now we are coming back down to the ground with a lot of science. There we go, we've started to get back into the atmosphere now. And you can tell that because I'm not touching the controls, but it's spinning round to be in the most aerodynamically stable position that it can be. Looks like we're going to be landing in the desert. So we might be able to do a crew report from there and get a bit of science that we haven't got yet. Unless our parachute burns into ashes, which would definitely not be a good thing. These are getting rather hot. Looks like if anything's going to burn up, it's going to be the science modules. Oh dear, what was that? Yep, there. Oh dear, that did not go well at all. So we lost some of the science that we had. Oh no. It's obviously shore oil, this, isn't it? We still have all of this stored science from the EVA reports and the crew report, so it's not a complete loss. And we achieved orbit, so I'd say that was a success, even though half of our spaceship blew up on the way down. Right, excellent. Not excellent, but pretty good. And there we go. Let's do another crew report here. There we go, 1.5 science, excellent. Let's recover the vessel. Another 35 science, that's wonderful. 600 funds from that. And some funds from that contract as well. So that's enough to upgrade this now. So we've got another next tier of vehicle assembly building, so we'll be able to build bigger spaceships. And we can research this, which gets us bigger fuel tanks, more advanced liquid fuel engine, and a bigger solid fuel booster. We've also got enough for the radio decouplers, they're very useful, and the larger winglets and the nose cones. And we've got 94 left, so that would be enough for this set, or this set, which is some larger parts. We don't really want to bother with planes at the moment. Or we can get radio parachutes. Radio parachutes would be very useful at the moment. So let's go with that. And let's get this bigger fuel tank as well, actually. And that seems like that's all we've got science for. So I guess I'll see you in the next one.